Good evening, and welcome to Third Church, New York City. Let's begin by singing hymn number 178. I'll read the first verse. Love is life's true crown and glory. Love the splendor of the light. Truly is God's counsel gentle. Truly all his ways are bright. Jesus knew the law of kindness, healing mind and heart of blindness, and in heavenly wisdom taught, holy works of love he wrought. Hymn number 178. I'll read from the Bible and correlative passages from Science and Health with Key to the Scriptures by Mary Baker Eddy. This week's readings were inspired by the dual concepts of self-righteousness and compassion. The Bible citations are from the New International Version, the New Testament in Modern English, and the King James Version. 2 Kings. The Lord testifieth, saying, Turn ye from your evil ways, and keep my commandments and my statutes, according to all the law which I commanded your fathers, and which I sent to you by my servants, the prophets. Isaiah. For the Lord is our judge. The Lord is our lawgiver. The Lord is our king. He will save us. Jonah. A message from the Lord came to Jonah. The Lord said, Go to the great city of Nineveh, preach against it. The sins of its people have come to my attention. But Jonah ran away from the Lord. A message from the Lord came to Jonah a second time. Go to the great city of Nineveh, announce to its people the message I give you. Jonah obeyed the Lord. He went to Nineveh. As he went, he announced, in 40 days Nineveh will be destroyed. The people of Nineveh believed God's warning. God saw what they did. He saw that they stopped doing what was evil. So he took pity on them. He didn't destroy them as he said he would. But to Jonah, this seemed very wrong, and he became angry. He prayed to the Lord, "Isn't this what I said, Lord, when I was still at home? This is what I tried to forestall by fleeing to Tarshish. I knew that you are a gracious and compassionate God, slow to anger and abounding in love, a God who relents from sending calamity. Now, Lord, take away my life, for it is better for me to die than to live." But the Lord replied, "Is it right for you to be angry?" Jonah had gone out and sat down at a place east of the city. There he made himself a shelter, sat in its shade, and waited to see what would happen to the city. Then the Lord provided a leafy plant and made it to grow up over Jonah to give shade for his head and to ease his discomfort. And Jonah was very happy about the plant. But at dawn the next day, God provided a worm, which chewed the plant so that it withered. When the sun rose, God provided a scorching east wind, and the sun blazed on Jonah's head so that he grew faint. He wanted to die and said, "It would be better for me to die than to live." But God said to Jonah, "Is it right for you to be angry about the plant?" "It is," he said, "and I'm so angry I wish I were dead." But the Lord said, "You have been concerned about this plant, though you did not tend it or make it grow. It sprang up overnight and died overnight. And should I not have concern for the great city of Nineveh, in which there are more than 120,000 people who cannot tell their right hand from their left, and also many animals?" Jeremiah, "Turn ye again now every one from his evil way, and from the evil of your doings, and dwell in the land that the Lord hath given you and to your fathers forever and ever." Psalms, "The Lord shall judge the people. Judge me, O Lord, according to my righteousness, and according to mine integrity that is in me." John, "At sunrise, he arrived again in the temple courtyard. All the people gathered around him there. He sat down to teach them. The teachers of the law and the Pharisees brought in a woman. She had been caught committing adultery. They made her stand in front of the group. They said to Jesus, "Teacher, this woman was caught sleeping with a man who was not her husband. In the law, Moses commanded us to kill such women by throwing stones at them. Now, what do you say?" They were trying to trap Jesus with that question. They wanted to have a reason to bring charges against him. But Jesus bent down and started to write on the ground with his finger. They kept asking him, so he stood up and said to them, "Has any one of you not sinned? Then you be the first to throw a stone at her." He bent down again and wrote on the ground. Those who heard what he said began to go away. They left one at a time, the older ones first. Soon only Jesus was left. The woman was still standing there. Jesus stood up and asked her, "Woman, where are they? Hasn't anyone found you guilty?" "No one, sir," she said. "Then I don't find you guilty either," Jesus said. "Go now and leave your life of sin." Matthew, "Woe unto you, scribes and Pharisees, hypocrites! For ye pay tithe of mint and anise and cumin, and have omitted the weightier matters of the law, judgment, mercy, and faith. These ought ye to have done, and not to leave the other undone. Ye blind guides, which strain at a gnat and swallow a camel, woe unto you, scribes and Pharisees, hypocrites! For ye make clean the outside of the cup and of the platter, but within they are full of extortion and excess. Thou blind Pharisee, cleanse first that which is within the cup and platter, that the outside of them may be clean also. Judge not, that ye be not judged. For with what judgment ye judge, ye shall be judged. And with what measure ye mete, it shall be measured to you again. And why beholdest thou the mote that is in thy brother's eye, but considerest not the beam that is in thine own eye? Thou hypocrite, first cast out the beam out of thine own eye, and then thou shalt see clearly to cast the mote out of thy brother's eye. Luke. Jesus continued, there was a man who had 2 sons. The younger son spoke to his father, Father, give me my share of the family property. So the father divided his property between his 2 sons. Not long after that, the younger son packed up all he had. Then he left for a country far away. There he wasted his money on wild living. He spent everything he had. Then the whole country ran low on food, so the son didn't have what he needed. I will go back to my father. I will say to him, Father, I have sinned against heaven. Make me like one of your hired servants. While the son was still a long way off, his father saw him. He was filled with tender love for his son. He ran to him. He threw his arms around him and kissed him. The father said to the servants, Quick, bring the best robe and put it on him. Put a ring on his finger and sandals on his feet. Bring the fattest calf and kill it. Let's have a feast and celebrate. The older son was in the field. When he came near the house, he heard the music and dancing, so he called one of the servants. He asked him what was going on. Your brother has come home, the servant replied. Your father has killed the fattest calf. He has done this because your brother is back safe and sound. The older brother became angry. He refused to go in. So his father went out and begged him. But he answered his father, Look, all these years I've worked like a slave for you. I have always obeyed your orders. You never gave me even a young goat so I could celebrate with my friends. But this son of yours wasted your money with some prostitutes. Now he comes home, and for him you kill the fattest calf. My son, the father said, you are always with me. Everything I have is yours. But we had to celebrate and be glad. This brother of yours was dead, and now he is alive again. He was lost, and now he is found. Psalms. The Lord is gracious and full of compassion. Colossians. Let the peace that Christ gives rule in your hearts. As parts of one body, you were appointed to live in peace. And be thankful. Let the message about Christ live among you like a rich treasure. Teach and correct one another wisely. Teach one another by singing psalms and hymns and songs from the Spirit. Sing to God with thanks in your hearts. 1 Peter. Most of all, love one another deeply. Love erases many sins by forgiving them. And from the Science and Health with Key to the Scriptures by Mary Baker Eddy. You will learn that in Christian Science, the first duty is to obey God, to have one mind, and to love one another as yourself. Love one another, 1 John 3:23, is the most simple and profound counsel of the inspired writer. In science, we are children of God, but whatever is of material sense or mortal belongs not to his children, for materiality is the inverted image of spirituality. Progress is born of experience. It is the ripening of mortal mind, it is the ripening of mortal man, through which the mortal is dropped for the immortal. Either here or hereafter, suffering or science must destroy all illusions regarding life and mind, and regenerate material sense and self. The old man with his deeds must be put off. Nothing sensual or sinful is immortal. The death of a false material sense and of sin, not the death of organic matter, is what reveals man and life harmonious, real, and eternal. Mortal belief must lose all satisfaction in error and sin in order to part with them. The Hebrew bard, swayed by mortal thoughts, thus swept his lyre with saddening strains on human existence. As for man, his days are as grass. As a flower of the field, so he flourisheth, for the wind passeth over it, and it is gone, and the place thereof shall know it no more. When hope rose higher in the human heart, he sang, As for me, I will behold thy face in righteousness. I will be satisfied when I awake with thy likeness. When we wait patiently on God and seek truth righteously, he directs our path. Imperfect mortals grasp the ultimate of spiritual perfection slowly, but to begin aright and to continue the strife of demonstrating the great problem of being is doing much. God is love. To suppose that God forgives or punishes sin according as his mercy is sought or unsought is to misunderstand love and to make prayer the safety valve for wrongdoing. Jesus uncovered and rebuked sin before he cast it out. Do you ask wisdom to be merciful and not to punish sin? Then ye ask amiss. Without punishment, sin would multiply. Jesus' prayer, forgive us our debts, specified also the terms of forgiveness. When forgiving the adulterous woman, he said, Go and sin no more. A sinner is afraid to cast the first stone. He may say as a subterfuge that evil is unreal, but to know it, he must demonstrate his statement. To assume that there are no claims of evil, and yet to indulge them, is a moral offense. Blindness and self-righteousness cling fast to iniquity. Christian Science rises above the evidence of the corporeal senses, but if you have not risen above sin yourself, do not congratulate yourself upon your blindness to evil, or upon the good you know and do not. If the student adheres strictly to the teachings of Christian Science and ventures not to break its rules, he cannot fail of success in healing. Which was the higher tribute to such ineffable affection, the hospitality of the Pharisee or the contrition of the Magdalene? This query Jesus answered by rebuking self-righteousness and declaring the absolution of the penitent. Pharisee, self-righteousness, vanity, hypocrisy. Vibrating like a pendulum between sin and the hope of forgiveness, selfishness and sensuality, causing constant retrogression, our moral progress will be slow. Waking to Christ's demand, mortals experience suffering. This causes them, even as drowning men, to make vigorous efforts to save themselves. And through Christ's precious love, these efforts are crowned with success. Work out your own salvation is the demand of life and love, for to this end God worketh with you. Wisdom and love may require many sacrifices of self to save us from sin. Jesus mapped out the path for others. He unveiled the Christ, the spiritual idea of divine love. To those buried in the belief of sin and self, living only for pleasure or the gratification of the senses, he said in substance, "Having eyes, ye see not, and having ears, ye hear not, lest ye should understand and be converted, and I might heal you." Scientific translation of immortal mind. God, divine principle, life, truth, love, soul, spirit, mind. Man, God's spiritual idea, individual, perfect, eternal. Idea, an image in mind, the immediate object of understanding. Webster. Scientific translation of mortal mind. First degree, depravity. Physical, evil beliefs, passions and appetites, fear, depraved will, self-justification, pride, envy, deceit, hatred, revenge, sin, sickness, disease, death. Second degree, evil beliefs disappearing. Moral, humanity, honesty, affection, compassion, hope, faith, meekness, temperance. Third degree, understanding, spiritual, wisdom, purity, spiritual understanding, spiritual power, love, health, holiness. In the third degree, mortal mind disappears, and man as God's image appears. Self-love is more opaque than a solid body. In patient obedience to a patient God, let us labor to dissolve with the universal solvent of love the adamant of error, self-will, self-justification, and self-love, which wars against spirituality and is the law of sin and death. Immortal mind heals what eye hath not seen, but the spiritual capacity to apprehend thought and to heal by the truth power is one only as man is found not in self-righteousness, but reflecting the divine nature. Ye who can discern the face of the sky, the sign material, how much more should ye discern the sign mental, and compass the destruction of sin and sickness by overcoming the thoughts which produce them, and by understanding the spiritual idea which corrects and destroys them. To reveal this truth was our Master's mission to all mankind, including the hearts which rejected him. The destruction of sin is the divine method of pardon. Divine life destroys death. Truth destroys error. And love destroys hate. Being destroyed, sin needs no other form of forgiveness. Does not God's pardon, destroying any one sin, prophesy and involve the final destruction of all sin? We acknowledge God's forgiveness of sin in the destruction of sin and the spiritual understanding that casts out evil as unreal. The rich in spirit help the poor in one grand brotherhood, all having the same principle or Father. And blessed is that man who seeth his brother's need and supplieth it, seeking his own in another's good. Let's pray for the congregation, first silently, then repeat together the Lord's Prayer. The Lord's Prayer. Our Father, which art in heaven, hallowed be thy name. Thy kingdom come. Thy will be done in earth as it is in heaven. Give us this day our daily bread, and forgive us our debts as we forgive our debtors. And lead us not into temptation, but deliver us from evil. For thine is the kingdom, and the power, for thine is the kingdom, and the power, and the glory, forever. Amen. Let's sing hymn number 304. The words of this hymn are from a poem titled Feed My Sheep, written by Mary Baker Eddy. I'll read the whole poem. Shepherd, show me how to go o'er the hillside steep, how to gather, how to sow, how to feed thy sheep. I will listen for thy voice, lest my footsteps stray. I will follow and rejoice all the rugged way. Thou wilt bind the stubborn will, wound the callous breast, make self-righteousness be still, break earth's stupid rest. Strangers on a barren shore, laboring long and lone, we would enter by the door, and thou knowest thine own. So when day grows dark and cold, tear or triumph harms, lead thy lambkins to the fold, take them in thine arms. Feed the hungry, heal the heart, till the morning's beam, white as wool ere they depart. Shepherd, wash them clean. Hymn number 304. This church is a branch of the Mother Church, the First Church of Christ Scientist in Boston, Massachusetts. We hold Sunday services at 11 a.m. and Wednesday testimony meetings at 7:30 p.m. We also have services in Spanish, Sundays at 1 p.m. and Wednesdays at 5:30 p.m. Our services are now held online and in person, and all are welcome. Third Church offers Sunday school classes online and in person for children and teens. These free one-hour classes are held each Sunday. At Sunday school, students learn how much God loves them and cares for them. They also learn about the Bible characters and lessons and the healing power of truth. For more information on times and classes, please send us an email, thirdchurch@thirdchurchnyc.com. Third Church maintains a reading room on the first floor of this building. The reading room provides a quiet place for prayer and study, and all are welcome. Here you may purchase books and recordings on Christian Science. The reading room has the latest issues of the Christian Science Monitor, an award-winning international news weekly available to read or purchase. Reading room hours are Monday through Friday from 1 to 4 p.m. This Christmas Eve, the members of Third Church are sharing an evening of inspiration on the topic, The Science of Christmas. Speaker Lawrence Doyle, astrophysicist, will help us think about Christmas in a new way. Lawrence's talk will begin with Christmas music and will live stream on our website, thirdchurchnyc.com. Please join us Friday, December 24th at 7:30 p.m. Eastern Standard Time. The talk includes simultaneous Spanish translation. And be sure to join us tomorrow for our Thanksgiving service, in person and online. English at 11 a.m., Spanish at 1 p.m. Christian Science is practical, and it heals. Our meeting is now open for all to share experiences of healing and spiritual insights that prove God's ever-presence and power in their lives. If you're listening by telephone and would like to share a testimony, on the number pad, first press star, then the number 6, and our technician Matthew will be listening for you and will unmute your line. At that point, greet us, and I'll let you know that you're free to speak. Also, please speak directly into the microphone of your phone. Don't use the speakerphone so we can hear you a little better. If you're watching by Zoom, feel free to unmute yourself and speak.
Mary Baker Eddy, the discoverer and founder of Christian Science, says that the prosperity of Christian Science depends largely on the Christian Science Bible lesson. And I've been thinking about that during the last month or so. That means to me that I have to make sure I am doing as thorough a job and consistent a job as I can to understand the truths in the Bible lesson and to express them and demonstrate them. And it also means that that is a protection of the Bible lesson and a protection of me as an individual. And it also follows that the Christian Science service, during which the Bible lesson is read, must be protected before, during, and after, protected from the negating influence or the supposititious influence of animal magnetism that would distract, that would make the lesson abstract, that would make the lesson uninteresting, overly familiar, etc. I had a healing this past Sunday, and I worked for this healing in a way that was new to me based upon what Mrs. Eddy says about the Bible lesson. Sunday morning, I woke early before I got to church and was doing stretching exercises, as I always do. The organ can be challenging on the body from time to time. And so I do those exercises before I get ready for church. And something sort of happened in one hip, and it was not an unusual occurrence, and it was not a desperate occurrence. It's a recurring situation, but it hasn't happened for a long time. And I, at first, was disheartened because I thought, well, this is going to make my job a little bit more cumbersome. What's going on here? Did I sleep the wrong way? And I spent about 10 or 15 seconds asking myself that, what's the error in my consciousness? And then I stopped myself and I said, no, that's not necessarily, those questions were not necessarily incorrect questions, but I decided to work with protecting the Bible lesson on soul and body. And the very simple truth came to me that animal magnetism today on that Sunday would get me, if it could, to focus on the physical body and be distracted from the truths of soul, the unfoldment of soul. And I just said I was not going to do that. So I got to church. I did the best I could to protect my work and the work of the entire service before, during, and after. And as I was going through the morning, that minor physical sensation was abating. And I worked the same way when I got home. That day was about soul and not about physical body. It was about soul and soul's spiritual body, which is always immortal, harmonious, and perfect, etc. I noticed by the time I was done with dinner around 6:30 or 7, the symptoms were completely gone. This situation, which has recurred from time to time, sometimes takes days in order to adjust itself. So I was very happy that I found a new way of working, a way that was obedient to Mrs. Eddy's directive about the Christian Science Bible lesson. Thank you for your readings.
Thank you for your readings. Many times I've started the day with the hymn, "This is the day the Lord hath made." Be glad, give thanks, rejoice. Last week, the thought of the day for me, I was doing my morning work, and the thought came, this is a sacred day. I often try to lift my thinking above self by saying that joy and dominion are qualities of God. And we express joy and dominion when we listen for God's direction. And if we don't have that joy, joy and dominion, that's getting away from being at one with Father, Mother, love. And so the thought was that, well, this is a sacred day. And I tried to stick with that throughout the day. And the fruit of that work was manifest. The day unfolded with the resolution of many problems. Ideas came that were helpful and useful. And it was just a wonderful fulfillment of that thought of a sacred day, that was God's day, being at one with the Father. I also appreciate the study of the lesson, and thought last week's lesson on soul and body was terrific. I mean, it lifts us to new realms in reality. One thought that my wife and I discussed was in that question in Science and Health: what is soul and what are body and soul? And I always thought that the first part of the question wasn't answered. Mrs. Eddy talks about soul, but I didn't think that the question about body or the relation of the two is really answered. But my wife pointed out to me that our teacher had said that when it says identity is the reflection of spirit in multifarious forms, the living principle, that she was talking about body. We have a sense of body as corporeal, but she was expressing it in spiritual terms, that we do have a body, but that body is a body, like people say body of thought. That comes close. That comes close. There's a body of thought that we do express in unique ways our father, mother love. And that's our identity, the way in which we are the same with our source. I just thought that the lesson was put together really well and was challenging and uplifting. So I'm very grateful for the study and for the application of Christian Science.
Thank you. I'm grateful for the small opportunities and big opportunities we have to learn more about God and healing and prayer. I'm taking my little dog. We're going to leave the country for about a week, and I had to go to the vet to get an international certificate of health so she could cross borders too. And she doesn't like to go to the vet. She doesn't like to go to the groomers, and she starts to tremble. So we were sitting there, and I was holding her, and I started to pray, and I sang hymns to her, and prayed with her, and told her prayers, said prayers with her. And she still continued to tremble. And at one point, I looked out the window and just got lost in a prayer of God's goodness, of God's wholeness, of God's love for the universe and us and everything in it, every detail. And at that moment, she stopped trembling. And I thought, that's really interesting. When I focused on healing her, nothing happened. But when I focused on God, the trembling stopped. And it was a nice lesson for me. And then in the meantime, a lady had come in whose dog had scratched its ear somehow and had to have stitches. And the dog was fine, bleeding, but fine and happy. But the lady was upset and nervous and scared, and we were able to help her feel more comfortable and calm. And I'm just grateful for these small lessons that start small and reach out around us. And I think every time any one of us prays, it reaches out to those around us and to the world with this understanding of God's love. And I'm grateful. I'm grateful that I've learned how to pray in the way we do with Christian Science, because we expect healing and we understand how to find that healing.
Thank you for reading the 3 degrees. The second degree is hope and faith, and I always thought that hope and faith was the ultimate, hoping that something would happen, continuing to have that in your heart would make that come true. The third degree, though, is understanding. That's when you know that it exists, that it is already there without being able to see it, that God's law is all, that love is all there is. And I notice in my thought that I keep oscillating between the two a lot of times, especially when someone else does something. And I look at that, and the little battle continues with, but they did this, and then in my thought I go, well, but love is all. And continuing that until I stay in the love is all column. You read a verse in Psalms about singing with the Psalms. That's also in the lesson for Thanksgiving. And I understand that psalm to mean that you keep your thought on the truths that are in the Psalms and not on the error. And that would, of course, keep one living in the third degree. So thank you for sharing those ideas together. It helps increase understanding.
Thank you. And thanks to everyone for your testimonies, whether spoken or thought, for your remarks and your prayers during the service. Let's conclude by singing hymn number 109. Here, O God, thy healing presence lifts our thoughts from self and sin, fills with light their hidden places when thy love is welcomed in. Here, thy tender, sweet persuasions turn us home to heavenly ways, while our hearts unsealed, adoring, pour the fragrance of thy praise. Hymn number 109.